Morning, guys. One of the things that has become really apparent to me when I talk to friends and people and tell them what I'm doing, I'm writing my book, I'm on this path of infinite mind wealth, and I want to try to be on it for myself and help others for the rest of my life and live in service of that. The first thing and the thing that I hear most often people say is it's hard. It's hard. That's what I hear all the time. But I never hear them say it's impossible because deep down inside, we know it is possible. And so here's the thing I've learned, and I hope this saves you more time than I've put into this because I've been studying personal growth and development for years, trying to work on controlling my mind. And I'm still on that path each and every day, and I want to openly share it with you. The one thing that made all the difference and is still making all the difference for me is you have to believe that you're worth it. You are worth it. Your true worth is your mind wealth, your freedom and happiness. Have a great day, everybody.
Life, right? Everybody has ideas for what you should be doing with your life.
To set healthy boundaries, you can't just make an announcement. I've been looking at the Lisa Nichols show, and I know you won't say it like that, but things have got to change. No, don't announce it like that. Don't announce it with that, what I call that stank energy on it. Don't announce it with that negative, I'm done, you've been using me. No. Again, they simply have signed up for the game that you created, the relationship that you created, which was, I'm going to give, you can receive. You don't ever have to worry about crossing a boundary with me. So the first thing you need to do is to set the record straight by apologizing to the people that you've allowed to cross your boundaries. You have to say, I apologize. Just say it just like this. Just quote me. Just like this. You don't have to say, you quote me. It's your own words. You can modify it as need be. But you know what? I owe you an apology. I owe you an apology because I've made you think that I have no boundaries. I've led you to believe that I don't need rest. What I've done is I've overused my yes. And so I'm not used to saying no, and you're not used to hearing no from me. I've even said yes to you when I needed to say no. And what I know about you is that you would want me happy. So I apologize. I set something in motion that doesn't even work for me. I love you. I know you love me, and I love the relationship, but I need to make some tweaks. I did this. Don't do it in any passive aggressive way that indirectly blames them. No, own your stuff. You are a leader. Own your mess. Own your choices. Own the results. I had to do it. Hold on. I set everyone up to believe that I can handle everything. I kind of like being the hero of the story. It was my ego or my self-esteem that needed to be fed for the last 10 years. And now I've grown up enough to realize I don't need that. And so in this new season, I need to set healthier boundaries. It's not about you. You never saw my line, so you didn't know that you were crossing it. You never saw the boundaries, so you didn't know where they existed. That's on me. Ooh, now that's grown folk talk. That's grown folk talk. That's adult. That's emotional literacy at its best. So I know it might make your knees knock. It might make your teeth chatter, but pull up your big boy pants, pull up your big girl pants and make it happen. Because on the other side of that is the experience that you deserve and the one that you're looking for. But it first requires you to do the work. In a previous episode, I talked about your Popeye muscle. That's the thing you've been doing for a long time already. That's the letting everyone cross your boundaries. That's the saying yes to everyone. And then there's that olive oil muscle. You know, the muscle that hangs down here because it's underdeveloped. That's that setting healthy boundaries muscle. That's that apologizing for how you've shown up and allowed other people to not even see your boundary. That's owning it. Oh, yeah, I know. It can be intense, but it's so incredibly beneficial. So let's do it. Let's reclaim your boundaries. Let's reclaim your joy. Let's reclaim your life. Let's reclaim your future. Let's reclaim and design it in a way that serves everybody. Because when you do this, you will model for those who are witnessing you. You will model, people won't choose to be out of relationship with you because you apologize for never setting boundaries. It'll be a little disruptive, it'll be a little uncomfortable, it'll be a little new, and then they'll settle in it. And then we know something new. And then you've inspired others to do the same.
The key to getting the life that you want is figuring out what you're going to say no to. You can get anything that you want, you just can't get everything that you want all at once. And if you're feeling like you're behind, you're unhappy, you're not getting anywhere close to your goals, you're not getting any kind of momentum towards achieving anything, then you have to start really examining, what are you going to say no to? Where do we need to raise the bar, raise our standards, and stop saying yes to people, to ideas that don't ultimately serve where you want to go? So my son just finished having a month off of school, and so I had him for a whole month, no school, and I decided for that month that I would spend a lot of time with him, that instead of him just being over and me working and spending evenings together, that I would spend most of the time with him. So I went from working whatever our normal work hours are down to 10% of the work hours. I canceled almost all of my meetings, I canceled almost all of my calls, I didn't do any Instagram lives. The only ongoing one that I kept was my Movement Makers and Brandlytics program that I train on Thursdays, and that was almost it. I still stayed on top of email, but I wasn't doing most of the things that I was normally doing. I said no to most things. I said no to media opportunities. I said no to speaking opportunities. I said no to new ideas for this YouTube channel and my other YouTube channels. I said no to almost everything. I put up a boundary for the month because I wanted to be able to spend the time with my son. And we had an amazing time, and it was awesome. And I took him to LA. He wants to be an actor, so I took him to LA. We went on some of the studio tours and did the Hollywood Walk of Fame and all of that fun stuff. And it was his first time there, and it was amazing. I don't regret any of it. And also when I came back, there was a mountain of work that I had to do. There's a mountain of emails to get back to. There's a mountain of people that I needed to connect with. And so it's just making a decision as to what do I want in my life, especially right now, and are the things that I'm doing leading me towards it or not? And if there's people that are not just getting in your way, but people who are bringing you down, people who are pulling you off in a different direction. Everybody has an agenda for your life, right? Everybody has ideas for what you should be doing with your life. And we're constantly being pulled in a million different directions. So how do you know which is the right one to do? Well, the process that I go through is I start by figuring out what is my most important core value. So mine is belief, right? What is your most important core value? If you're being pulled in a million different directions by all sorts of people who have plans for what you should do with your life, until you understand what you stand for as a human, you're going to constantly be pulled in all those million directions and never feel like you have any safe spot to stand on. You're going to feel like you're in quicksand all the time. So what is your single most important core value? Maybe one already comes to mind, maybe you've already done this exercise and you already know it, but that's a constant reminder. And if you don't know what your most important core value is, I go through it in Year One Word and Built to Serve, but basically think about all the things that have made you come alive, the people that you've loved, the movies you loved watching, your favorite teacher of all time. What's the common thread between all of them? It's a feeling, it's an emotion. Your favorite teacher growing up wasn't because they taught you, mine was Madame Farr, it wasn't because she taught me French, it's because she made me believe in myself more, right? So all those great things that made you come alive, what's the consistent thread between those things? And that's what you need more of right now, and it's what you need more of in the future going into your life. So the projects that don't feel right, the people who are pushing you in the wrong direction, it could be from a really loving place, but if it doesn't match up with your most important core value plus the goals that you're trying to accomplish, then it's not a fit. And I don't think you have to have necessarily tough conversations with toxic people. Just stop spending time with them. Just stop spending as much time with them. If there's people who are constantly negative around you, just stop spending time with them. Raise the bar for what you accept into your life. And so the willingness to say no, to understand that you can't have everything, but you can have anything, and being super clear on what that anything is. And by going after that anything, by going after your big goals, it requires you to say no to other things. And this isn't just a business thing. This is for any goal that you've got. If you've got a health goal, right? If you've got a health goal, Well, you can have anything you want. You can go have pizza and donuts and beer and whatever. You can go eat that. You'll feel good in the moment. But you can't have everything, because you'll end up being overweight and unhealthy and not probably not happy with your life. If you are happy, great, keep going off and doing it. But this morning I've got my coffee. I go on a Believe walk every morning. I spend time thinking about what I want today to look like. I'm making YouTube videos. What's my intention? What I want to put out there to the world. Go get a coffee for myself and Nina, and it's just a coffee. It's not what I love to go to Tim Hortons, nice Canadian brand if you don't know Tim Hortons, and get a farmer's wrap with bacon and sausage and egg and hash brown and a Boston cream donut. Of course, my mouth is watering as I'm saying all that stuff, but I'm not doing it because I've got a health goal. And so I can have anything, but I can't have everything. And so it's the willingness to say no to those other things that may even bring you some kind of short-term benefit, but are in alignment with who you want to be. So it's getting really clear on who you are, what's your most important core value, and then what are the goals that you want for yourself. And then the things that no longer kind of match up, the activities. If you want to hit your goals, it's the activities and the habits that you're doing on a daily basis, right? Eating a donut every now and then, it's not the end of the world. Eating a donut every day, you're going to not hit your health goals. So it's more about what are you doing consistently every day. If you're around negative people constantly every day, you're going to be a lot more negative. If you're around them every now and then, it's not going to make that big of an impact. So you are where you consistently do. And so it's choosing to show up in a certain way, to say no, and setting boundaries and raising the standard for what you consistently accept into your life. And it's a choice. It's a decision. And you don't have to make some giant decision like I'm only going to hang around millionaires now. I mean, you could if you want. But a lot of these decisions are made in increments, that it's much more important about what are you doing today, and then tomorrow, and then the next day, and these micro improvements that you're going to make where you're constantly and never-endingly, is that a word? Never-endingly raising the bar for what you accept into your life. And one of my favorite ways to do it is content, is videos. If you feel like you're kind of stuck and you haven't grown in a while, and the friends around you are just thinking small and they're not inspiring you, and you feel stuck. If you look back on the past year of your life, have you grown? Are you further ahead? Do you know more? Are you more confident? Have you accomplished more? Are you moving closer towards your goals? Are you proud of the person that you have become right in the past year? And if no, then it's changing the environment to be around the people who are like who you want to be. And I find content is the best way to do it. It's why I make these videos. It's why I do my main channel. It's why I do so much content, that whether you're learning from me or Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey or Tony Robbins or Lisa Nichols or whoever, that there's always something every day to be there for you. On my Believe walks in the morning, I always listen to one of my videos. So on the walk to get the coffee, I'm usually doing videos myself or responding to people on Instagram and DMs and just sending out love and feeling like I'm part of the community and the work I do matters. And then on the way back, because I have 2 cups of coffee in my hand, I can't record videos. So I'm listening and watching one of the videos from my channel. And I love starting my day with a Warren Buffett or an Elon Musk or whoever in my ears, because it pushes me forward. No matter how big I'm thinking, how great I am, the work that I'm doing, I love being around people who are doing more, and it pushes me forward. And no matter how great a day I had yesterday, today feels like a new day. You have the greatest day of all time yesterday, but that buzz, that high fades. The feeling like you're unstoppable fades. And so it's having that as a consistent, again, you are what you consistently do. Having that as a consistent part of your routine is being surrounded by the people, even if you don't have them as friends, but videos, podcasts, books of the people who are thinking, living, acting like the way you want to. And the more that you're around them, the more they will pull you forward to accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish, and you becoming the person you want to be. So you can have anything you want. You can have anything you want. You just can't have everything. And the difference between where you are now and where you want to be is what and who you are now going to start saying no to, because you've raised your standards. Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Good morning, guys. Today in our top 10 rules for success journey, Robert Kiyosaki shares his 10th rule, which stands out for me, and that is don't save money, hedge it. So what does that mean? So all of us have a tendency to want to save money. We view that, or most of us view that as the path to attaining monetary wealth. He asks us to reverse it. So we have to think of hedging it. What does that mean? That means for him, when he's investing, he puts what he calls a stop loss. So when it gets to a certain point where his asset's not making money, he'll stop it. So I want us to apply this in our life. I view us as human investment machines in the decision making we make. So when you make a decision today, think about the positive return on it. If it doesn't provide any positive return, or there's no hope for it, then don't make that decision. Make a different one. I hope this helps everybody. Have a great day.
When I'm going through change in my life, or I have a specific outcome that I want to create, I love to get up early in the morning. That's my time. I'm a 4:30 in the morning guy because that's my time. The rest of the day I'm serving, but I love getting up early and changing and working and having some time to myself. And I believe that when I invest in myself, I invest in my future. And that time in my morning, nobody bothers me because that's my time. And because of brain waves and brain chemistry, the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is more open. And so if I get up early and I'm kind of between theta and alpha, I don't have to work as hard. I'm not thinking, I just kind of relax into the moment. In the evening, I always ask myself, how did I do? How was one lifetime in one day? Where did I fall from grace? What happened? And so then when I look at seeing how I reacted to someone or something, or I made the choice that I could have made a better choice, I naturally, and we all do this, begin to think, well, if the same situation happened again, how would I do it differently? And that's the act of beginning to come up with a new plan. The act of rehearsing it in your mind begins to install the circuits in your brain, priming your brain so that when the next experience happens, you could modify your behaviors to do a better job in life. That's called plasticity. So it doesn't matter for me what meditation I do any longer. I like to just get up in a new state of being. I have people say to me, hey, I missed my meditation today, like I'm supposed to go like this or something. And I say to them, eyes open or eyes closed? You know, well, eyes open or eyes closed. You know, when you're passionate about something, you know, when people can't get up in the morning and they can't get out of bed, I'm going to tell you why. Because they can predict the feeling of everything that's going to happen in their life. And their body's resigned to the familiar. It says, oh, another mundane day. But remember when you were a kid and you were going on a field trip? What happened then? You were up and dressed and ready to go before your parents were up. You know why? Because you knew something unexpected was going to happen. That's how we should live our lives. Waking up with the understanding to expect the unexpected, and something unusual should happen in our life as a result of our efforts. And it's just those beginning moments where it begins to happen that we begin to prove to ourselves how powerful we really are. So take time in the morning and the evening and the rest of the day. Check in with yourself at certain times to see if you're still in that energy. And if you're not, excuse yourself for a second, raise your energy, and step back into your life. And if you keep doing that over and over again, you'll become less frustrated, less impatient, less judgmental. It'll just become something of the past, and you'll be someone else.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know you've got something more inside you. You've got Michael Jordan level genius at something. So today, let's live your best belief life and learn how you can manifest your success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, let go of doubt with Rhonda Byrne.
I just want you to know doubt comes from the mind, and they're just thoughts, and the reason that they're appearing is because you have a belief that is saying that you don't have this already. But just don't give those doubts any energy, and work harder on feeling that you have your manifestation, because when you believe you have your manifestation, no thoughts of doubt will come. When you believe you have it, you have overridden any other belief in the subconscious mind. You've reprogrammed your subconscious, and then it will manifest. So just remind yourself that you are the power that creates everything. Effortlessly. You are that power. So just take it. It's not an effort. It's really easy. You know, it's really easy. Just take it easy. Let go of the doubtful thoughts.
Rule number 3, reprogram your paradigm with Bob Proctor.
We have here in the subconscious the paradigm, and part of the paradigm with respect to money is it's a poverty thing. Now, this paradigm impacts our thinking. There's a power flowing into our consciousness, and the thoughts we think are generally motivated by the subconscious mind. Now, something that I've been pointing out here recently on, look at this. The subconscious mind is universal intelligence. So when you have that paradigm in the subconscious mind, that controls the vibration that we're in, and the vibration we're in is going to dictate what we attract, because we're in that vibration here on a conscious level, on a subconscious level, and on a physical. So you're going to attract from anywhere you go in the universe the same type of thing. That's what we're attracting. So we're attracting people that are in harmony with this, and this paradigm causes our thinking to be along the same level. Now, we've got to realize, even in our ignorance, when we don't know and we haven't got anything, our thinking is hooked into universal intelligence. And you will attract from wherever it is in the universe, whatever is required to cause the problem. When you hear people say, you know, I just get one bill paid and another one pops up. Bang, they're going to attract it. And sure as it gets dark, they get it. Now that's ingrained in our mind from the time we're children. In fact, from the moment of conception in most of us. And then we grow into it, and that's what we hear as we're growing up. Money doesn't grow on trees, and over, you can't have everything you want, you know. And that is, that's got to be eliminated, and we've got to realize that is not fact. That you do not have to work harder, that you do less, and you earn more. And you've got to get the idea that you can have money coming in from many different places in the world, dragging it right into you. You attract it. And you can magnetize yourself to money in all different quantities.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 4, create new affirmations with John Assaraf.
When you want to override automatic negative thoughts or disempowering, beliefs or self-image issues, the first thing you want to do from a brain perspective is first acknowledge that, hey, I have this disempowering thought or disempowering image, a self-image, or disempowering fear. I acknowledge that. That's okay. So the first thing you do is you don't pretend it doesn't exist, because your brain knows it exists. You know it exists. The dog knows it exists. But when you take that and say, yes, that's true, and now I'm going to create a new vision for what I want to feel. I'm going to create a new vision for how I want to see myself. I'm going to create a new vision to see myself at the level above the level that I'm at right now. And you create an image and write it down. And then what you can do is you can create a new powerful declaration or affirmation that goes like this. You may want to write this down, okay? And this is just a beginning process of retraining your brain. There's 6 different steps that you can do here. I'll give you 2 of them. So you create a declaration and you say, even though I feel, or even though I have this belief of, what I am focusing on now is my augmented self-worth or self-esteem. What I'm focusing on now is getting smarter, wiser. What I'm focusing on now is releasing this fear and stepping into my confidence and my certainty. Now, a simple little declaration of acceptance and then moving towards what you want, that starts to activate a new neural pattern. So you don't have to lie to yourself and say, for example, is if you feel like you're not smart enough, not worthy, not capable, and you say, in the past, I have felt that I wasn't smart enough, not worthy, not capable, and now I'm learning how to. If you could just create a bridge from the disempowering thought or belief or emotion or behavior, and you can create a bridge to where the next step is, and now I'm learning how to, and now I'm taking steps towards. When you give yourself that bridge, your brain goes, oh, okay, you can do this. So if you don't want to go from I'm not smart enough to I'm really smart and I can achieve it, for some people that's too big of a jump. So create a bridge between those two so that you reduce the neural tension and you're nice to your brain. And that is one of the ways that you can do that.
Rule number 5, focus on serving with Lewis Howes.
If you are in a tough financial spot, maybe you're struggling financially and you've been trying to start a business or a side hustle. I've been there. I know what this feels like. It's not fun. For a long time, I was living on my sister's couch and I didn't have much money. It was really stressful. I remember this feeling of being stuck, feeling like I was never going to make any money. And when I was focusing on that feeling of I'm never going to make this money, I feel stuck, I feel trapped, when's this going to happen, feeling this anxiousness, this stress around it, it was really impossible for me to think of creative ideas. It was impossible for me to take action because I was living in the stress as opposed to the gratitude for what I was having in that moment. I should have been focusing on, you know what, my sister is allowing me to stay here for free, so I have some time to learn a new skill. I made $100 this day. I should be grateful for that. Not focusing on what I'm lacking or what I don't have, but what I am creating on a daily basis. And I started to ask different questions around this time, like how can I be of service to other people? How can I add as much value to someone else? Or what are my top skill sets that I can use to my advantage that no one else has? Like, what do I have? I started writing a list of all these different skills that I had. Even when I didn't think I had many skills, I still wrote down a list of the qualities I have, of the skills from the past that maybe I could apply to right now. And when I began asking those types of questions, I started attracting the people who needed my skill sets and services. And I finally started to make more money than ever before, because I was thinking about serving others. I was thinking from a positive, grateful standpoint about helping others and starting a side hustle which turned into a business, instead of thinking negatively about not having any money or I'm sleeping on my sister's couch and why is it taking me so long to create this and I'll never make anything from this situation. I started focusing on how can I add value, as much value as possible to this one person in front of me right now. How can I serve them? How can I create for them? How can I connect someone to them that could help them? What can I do to add value and help someone else achieve their goals? Because I think, as Zig Ziglar said, if you want to accomplish all of your goals, help other people accomplish their goals. And that's what I started focusing on. Not what I'm lacking, but how can I give and how can I add value to other people? When you focus outward on service, you start to really attract some incredible things in your life. It's unbelievable, the ripple effect, the domino effect, one person helping another person, how it comes back around to you. And if you've ever felt this for yourself, leave a comment below of this feeling you've had when you started adding more and more value, getting out of the negative situation inside your mind and in your body, focusing outward on helping others. It's incredible the things you can start to attract and manifest in your life.
Rule number 6, commit to positive self-talk with Brendon Burchard.
Every day, that self-talk commands you to be congruent with the best of who you are. And the more you are congruent, the more you are fulfilled. You can do fulfilling things, but if you are incongruent, you don't feel fulfilled. Think about that, because your mind, your body, your spirit knows if you're being congruent, if you are a person of integrity, living the best life. If the further you are away from that, the harder it is to be fulfilled, even if you're doing fulfilling things like serving people. So get your self-talk realigned. I can't emphasize anymore how important it is to master this area of your life, to take control, to create a consistent routine of positive self-talk that guides you towards being your best every day so that you have more opportunities. You're going to have lots of misses, but because you're stepping at the plate, you'll have more swings. You'll have more opportunities to hit a home run. You'll have more opportunities to have the at-bat to be your best self. And the more that you do that, the more hits you get. The more hits you get, the better you feel, the more competent and capable. And so I'm encouraging you all to please, please, please remember this. Say amazing things to yourself. Have an affirmation list. Have a practice. Do it at a certain time, a certain date. In my world, I'm blessed to run with the greatest motivational speakers of our time, and all of them have something they say to themselves backstage before they go out on stage. Do they need to do that? No. Yes. If they don't, see, they're commanding themselves. They're willing themselves. They're encouraging themselves. If you don't like the word command or demand, they're encouraging themselves to get into the right state of mind to have their best performance, their best service, so that later on they can go, that was really great. I appreciate that. I feel good about that. I feel fulfilled. See, it's hard to feel fulfilled if you don't feel good about how you showed up. When you feel good about how you show up again and again and again and again, the senses of meaning and fulfillment lift up.
And rule number 7, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is boost your self-worth with Marissa Peer.
Millionaires and people who have incredible wealth leave clues. There are 7 things that you can do to attract wealth into your life, and you can start right now. Number 1 is examine your relationship with money, because you do have a relationship with money. Do you worry about it slipping through your fingers? Do you hold on to it? Are you scared of spending money? Do you tip only a tiny amount because you really haven't got enough and you're in that scarcity mindset? Look at how you hold on to money, how you worry. Do you say things like, I can't find the money, which in itself is kind of weird because nobody finds money. Do you say money slips through my fingers? I can't hold on to money. When you examine these expressions, they're not even true. So look at how you talk about money, how you feel about money. Boost your self-worth by saying things like, I deserve money. I'm worth money. I have an amazing skill set. I deserve to monetize this gift I've got. I have a gift and I can monetize it. What I can do, create, is worth financial investment. So don't think things like, I'm going to write a book, no one's going to read it. I'm going to open a shop, nobody will come. Do the opposite. I have a phenomenal product. Everyone's going to fall in love with this product. I'm monetizing a gift. And if I believe in it so much because it's worth believing in, so will everyone else. Commit to achieving financial abundance. I've just been in someone else's documentary about how to become an entrepreneur, how to make money yourself. It has never been easier. There are so many YouTube tutorials and Instagram posts where you can find out how to create wealth, how to create a product, how to sell a product, how to be good at selling, good at finding funding, good at promoting something you have. For instance, if you want to write a book, I've just written my 7th book, you've got to be really good at promoting a book. It's not enough to write a great book, not even maybe. You have to learn how to promote that book, write articles about your book, go on shows and blogs and talk about your book. Because if you want something, you're going to have to learn something. Anything of significance that you want will require you learning something new, like marketing, for instance. And if you can learn marketing, you can make a lot of money by marketing an amazing product, even if it's not your product. Be productive, not busy. You can get more done in less time when you focus. It's so easy to go, I'm going to write a book, let me sharpen my pencils, do some spell check, get everything just right. Just get on with it. Sit down and focus on what you're doing. You can get more done in less time when you just narrow your thoughts down. Wealth is also a state of mind. You see, you can be a generous person, generous with your time, generous with compliments, generous with help. Don't think, I haven't got any money, and so I can't really go to this place. I got to turn up with gifts, or I'm poor. Don't have a poor mentality. Have a generous mentality. Give a lot of yourself. And when you can give a lot of yourself, you can get so much back. People who are wealthy give more. You know, and I'm working with a client, I don't go, oh, sorry, time's up now. I let time run over. I give more, I do more. Giving more and doing more than is required of you will make you destined for success. But do it because you love it, not because you think, oh, I need to stay at the office late. I need to spend more time with this customer. They don't really deserve it, but I've got to give. It's not that kind of giving. But when you give more and do more, people remember you. They remember you and they want to give more back to you.
Good morning, guys. One of the things that I laugh about now when I look back on my path and my journey to personal growth and development is some of the things I was trying to do with the people that I love most, especially my wife, my kids. So when I first read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and then I read all the other books that helped me realize the power within our minds and how I could use this to help other people, I was excited. And first thing, naturally, we want to help the people around us. But I realize now that there is no way you're going to help anybody unless they want to be helped. So, but it was funny when I look back because I would be sending links, videos, I would be reading, sharing, talking about everything I was reading. And when I look back, you know, the people around me, they didn't care. They didn't think anything of it. For me, it was like I'd cracked the code and realized, wow, we're so powerful. And I want to help share this with everybody, people I love most. But it's not going to happen unless people are open-minded and ready for it. It's not going to happen. And now I can laugh at it.
Pick up your damn suffering, bear it, and try to be a good person so you don't make it worse. Well, that's a truth. You know, I read a lot about the terrible things that people have done to each other. You just cannot even imagine it. It's so awful. So you don't want to be someone like that. Now, do you have a reason to be? Yes. You have lots of reasons to be. God, there's reasons to be resentful about your existence. Everyone you know is going to die. You know, you too. And there's going to be a fair bit of pain along the way, and lots of it's going to be unfair. It's like, yeah, no wonder you're resentful. It's like, act it out and see what happens. You make everything you're complaining about infinitely worse. There's this idea that hell is a bottomless pit, and that's because no matter how bad it is, some stupid son of a bitch like you could figure out a way to make it a lot worse. So you think, well, what do you do about that? Well, you accept it. That's what life is like. It's suffering. That's what the religious people have always said. Life is suffering. Yes. Well, who wants to admit that? Well, just think about it. Well, so what do you do in the face of that suffering? Try to reduce it. Start with yourself. What good are you? Get yourself together for Christ's sake so that when your father dies, you're not whining away in a corner and you can help plan the funeral and you can stand up solidly so that people can rely on you. That's better. Don't be a damn victim. Of course you're a victim. Jesus, obviously. Put yourself together. And then maybe if you put yourself together, you know how to do that. You know what's wrong with you, if you'll admit it. You know there's a few things you could like polish up a little bit that you might even be able to manage in your insufficient present condition. And so you might shine yourself up a little bit, and then your eyes will be a little more open, then you can shine yourself up a little bit more, and then maybe you could bring your family together instead of having them be the hateful, spiteful, neurotic, infighting batch that you're like doomed to spend Christmas with. So then you fix yourself up a little bit, kind of humbly, because, you know, God, you're a fixer-upper if there ever was one. And then you got to figure out, well, can you figure out how to make peace with your idiot brother? And probably not, because he's just as dumb as you, so how the hell are you going to manage that? And so then maybe you get somewhere that way, and your family's sort of functioning, and you find out, well, that kind of relieved a little bit of suffering, although it reduced the opportunities for spiteful revenge, and that's kind of a pain in the neck. And so then you get your family together a little bit, and you're a little clued in then, at least a bit, because you've done something difficult that's actually difficult. You're a little wiser, and so then maybe you can put a tentative finger out beyond the family and try to change some little thing without wrecking it. It's like, our society is complex, and we teach our students that they could just fix it. It's like, go fix a military helicopter and see how far you get with that. It's like, what are you going to do? You're like a chimp with a wrench. Whack! Oh, look, it's better. It's like, no, it's not better. Things are complicated, and to fix things is really hard. And you have to be like a golden tool to fix things, and you're not. So, and that's the other message of the West. It's like, how do you overcome the suffering of life? And I'm not saying it's only the message of the West. How do you overcome the suffering of life? Is be a better person. That's how you do it. Well, that's hard. It takes responsibility. And I think, you know, if you said to someone, you want to have a meaningful life? Everything you do matters. That's the definition of a meaningful life. But everything you do matters. So you're going to have to carry that with you. Or do you want to just forget about the whole meaning thing, and then you don't have any responsibility because who the hell cares, and you can wander through life doing whatever you want, gratifying impulsive desires for how useful that's going to be, and you're stuck in meaninglessness, but you don't have any responsibility. Which one do you want? Well, ask yourself, which one are you pursuing? And you'll find very rapidly that it isn't the majority of your soul that's pursuing the whole meaning thing, because, well, look what you have to do that. You have to take on the fact that life is suffering. You have to put yourself together in the face of that. Well, that's hard.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jordan Peterson, and my take on his top 10 rules for success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, stop wasting time.
I stopped wasting time. That helped a lot. I stopped drinking. I stopped going to bars. I really didn't spend a lot of time with my friends when I had young kids in particular. I had friends and I saw them, you know, with some degree of regularity, but where I cut corners was more with social life outside my family. So I spent a lot of time with my wife, and I spent a lot of time with my kids, and I spent a lot of time on my career. And so you have to make choices. And I think those were reasonable choices. I'm not displeased with them. Don't abandon your friendships, but you can certainly look at where you're wasting time and just stop doing things that you know to be a waste of time. So, and I did. And so I had enough room for my marriage, and I had enough room for my kids, and I had enough room for my career, and, you know, sort of a multi-dimensional career. And it was always a challenge to me too, to see how efficient I could get. And you could also, and I've really recommended this for relatively higher income, dual income couples who are trying to pursue dual careers, kids, and marriage. You can outsource, you know, hire a cleaning lady if you can afford it. Buy restaurant food if you can afford it, etc. You know, you can outsource. You can have someone do your laundry, and then you can concentrate on your marriage and your kids. I know that you know is only an avenue available to people who have relatively high incomes, but people who have dual incomes have relatively high incomes, and so outsource what's unnecessary so that you can concentrate on what's necessary. I mean, I didn't do that when I was beginning my career, because when I lived in the United States, when I was in my late 20s and starting my family, we had one income. You'd think a Harvard beginning professor makes a lot of money, and I suppose that's true in some absolute sense, but relatively speaking, you know, we didn't have enough money to buy magazines. We all our money went for housing cost and the basic necessities of living. I had a car that was 20 years old. 25 years old, I think. It was old. It was a bloody thing. The doors fell apart on the person I sold it to, you know, like 6 months down the road. They knew it was a wreck at that point, but we drove that thing right into the ground. So I know that's not necessarily possible for everyone at the beginning of their career, but if you have two incomes, you can manage it. I concentrated on my marriage and making time for it. I concentrated on spending time with my kids consciously, and I concentrated on developing my career. Those were the three elements of my life. And I had some time left over for creative pursuits and for friends, but most of it was a matter of getting rid of time wastes of any sort, you know, and I just pushed that out of my life, you know, day after day until I wasn't wasting any time or virtually no time. And, you know, I've asked my undergraduates frequently how much time they waste per day, and general estimates are like 6 to 8 hours of time they regard themselves as wasting. Like, that's a whole career right there, right? So if you just stop wasting time, you can do a tremendous amount, especially if you also try to maximize efficiency. And I always found that incredibly motivating. You know, a motivating game. How much can I do in the least amount of time possible? That's fun to try to do that, as far as I'm concerned. I know, you know, that's maybe undoubtedly a temperamental thing, but if you're wired that way, that's a great meta strategy. Become efficient. I always asked my graduate students when they were designing experiments, they'd come with a proposal. I'd say to them, you know, is there any way you could do this 10 times faster? What would you have to cut? What would you have to change to do this 10 times faster? And you can learn to do that. I also learned to force the task to fit the time. You know, there's this dictum, work expands to fill the time allowed for its completion. Work expands to fill the time allowed for its completion. Well, there's a corollary to that, which is work becomes more efficient in proportion to the restrictions of time placed upon it. So if you say, well, this could take me 2 weeks, but I'm going to do the best job I could in 1 day, you'd be amazed. You can get 90% of the way or 95% of the way, or sometimes even farther in that day. So that's another way of becoming efficient. You know, if you only have 10 minutes to do something that should maybe take you 2 hours, maybe you can figure out how to do it in 10 minutes. You can get dreadfully efficient. So that's very much worthwhile in my estimation. If you want to do a lot of things, what else are you going to do? You know, rather than become efficient, if you want to do many things, you don't have much choice. But I found it extremely entertaining to try to do that. And when I was healthy, I could do a tremendous amount in a very short period of time. I'm very frustrated that that's not so much the case now, although perhaps it's coming back to some degree.
Rule number 3, learn to listen.
If I've got a friend in my life or a you know, partner that I want to encourage to come out of their place of despair into a better place, how do I effectively do that without overpowering them or stifling them or making them feel inadequate, which is sometimes the consequence of trying to change someone you love?
Well, example's good, but then I would say disabuse yourself of the notion that you know what is best for this person. You don't, not only do you not know, you actually don't want that responsibility for two reasons. Let's say they do what you say and something good happens to them. Well, whose victory is that? Yours or theirs? And if it's yours, did you just steal it? And then let's say they fail following your advice. Well, they pay the price for that. And you can skip away merrily and say, well, I should have spoke more carefully. It's like, you don't mess about with people's destiny. You do not know where they're headed. Now, having said that, you do what you're doing in this interview, in this podcast. You ask people questions, real questions, you know, like, how are you feeling? Oh, I'm not doing so good today. Well, you know, what's up? What's going on? And you can't think, well, I'm going to ask questions to lead this person in a particular direction, because that's the same game, the same instrumental game. You have to see what it is that you want to know. I see this when people ask me questions after my lectures, you know. Now and then, or during a Q&A, now and then people will get up and they'll ask a real question. It's part of the ongoing dialogue. Something struck them. They stand up. There's something they really want to know. It's an honest question. And that goes real well. But not infrequently, someone stands up with a little prepared speech that's packaged as a question. So I get this from Christian traditionalists fairly frequently. They get up and they ask me about my religious convictions, but really what they want to do is corner me into admitting that I should accept Jesus Christ as my Savior and join a particular, let's say, denomination. It's not a question. It's just a manipulation. And so your questions, like your statements, your questions should be honest. And if you ask people questions and you really listen, they will untangle themselves. And that's partly why people love to be attended to, you know? Like, if I meet people on the street, you know, I ask them their name. They're all usually flustered when they come up to me. They don't really want to interrupt me, and then they're flustered. And the first thing I do is shake their hand and ask them their name. And I listen, you know? I'm not that good at remembering names, but I listen to it. And they know how to say their name. And so it kind of settles them down. And then it sort of marks them out as a person against the background, eh? And then if I pay attention to them and listen, they will tell me something in like 10 seconds that I need to know. Because they have something to say, you know? And then if you listen, people tell you what they have to say, and then you get wise because you collect all that. And so you want to help someone. Well, first of all, you would decide that you're aiming towards help, right? And that you do that in the spirit of ignorance. This is what every good clinician learns is, I don't know where you're headed. I don't know what's wrong with you. This is a hard problem, man. It's like, what's your problem? I don't know what your problem is. So let's find that out first. And then let's find out one thing you can ask people. This is actually useful in an argument with someone you love. They're upset with you. What are your preconditions for satisfaction? Now, I wouldn't state it like that. It's like, if I could give you what you wanted right now in the context of this argument, and I wasn't doing it in a manipulative way, what is it that I would have to say or do that would in principle satisfy you? And that's a hard question, you know? And the person might say, well, I think you should apologize and about this, and, you know, and then I will say, what words should I use? And they'll say, well, if you loved me, you'd know. And I would say, no, I'm stupid and ignorant, and I don't know what the right words are to satisfy you. So why don't you give me a hand with that, and I'll utter them inelegantly and awkwardly in a good faith demonstration of my commitment to peace. And that won't be so good because maybe it would have been better if I came up with it myself, but maybe next time I can do slightly better. And that works. It requires the person who's after you to think through the question even of whether there's anything that could be said or done that would satisfy them. And if the answer to that is no, well, probably the relationship is over. But certainly the person that they're accusing has been put in an absolutely impossible position. But usually, almost inevitably, if the person meditates on it for a bit, there is something that would satisfy them that can be negotiated, as long as they're willing to give you the opportunity to do it, you know, stupidly and badly. So listening, man. Jimmy Carr, I talked to Jimmy Carr 2 weeks ago, the famous comedian. Yeah, it was real interesting. He said comedy is the most dialogical of the entertainment forms. And I thought, well, what do you mean by that? Because you're just, it's a monologue, right? Now, I do monologues, but I pay attention to the audience, right? I'm always talking to individual people in the audience and watching their reactions and listening to the audience as a whole. So even though it's a lecture, let's say, or a talk, I'm watching the audience and responding. So we're in a kind of dance. Well, Carr pointed out that comedians, before they hit the road, and this is virtually invariably the case, they have their new routines. So their corpus of potentially funny jokes. And then they do 200 shows in front of small audiences. And the audience either laughs or doesn't. And if you're listening, you collect all the jokes that people laugh at. If you do that 200 times, you have nothing but hilarious material. But you listened. And then you can go out on the road. And that was very interesting to me, because humor is a mysterious phenomenon, experientially and conceptually. And it's sort of precognitive and instinctual, but it's also extremely sophisticated. And there's an element of transcendence about it, right? Because you can laugh at yourself. And that's in some sense the highest form of humor. And so it's so interesting that we can criticize and elevate ourselves at the same time, and that we find that intensely pleasurable. And so a good comedian collects ways to do that, shares them with the audience, and he's listening. And so if you want to help someone, the best way to help someone is not to give them advice, but to listen to them.
Rule number 4, live a meaningful life.
Life has proximal meanings, right? There's the meaning that you experience when you're engaged in a piece of art, or when you're reading, or when you're engrossed in a movie or in a conversation. There's the meaning that emerges within your relationships with people that you cherish or are enthusiastic with. There's meanings of security and predictability. There's meanings of duty and responsibility and active engagement with your job and your career. There's meanings of aesthetic pleasure. Now, all of those have their value, and each of them has their place. And, you know, maybe there's a hierarchy of value there as well, so that some of those meanings are deeper than others. And then you might say, well, what characterized the deepest of all meanings? And it would be something like relationship with the transcendent, and that would establish a relationship between you and what's always been conceptualized as God, which is generally supposed to be something ineffable, right? It's not definable, but you might think about it as the central animating spirit of the age, or the value around which all other values are organized, or the wisdom of the ages, or the creative spirit that possesses you when you're inspired, or what grips you with enthusiasm at a sports event or at a musical event, all of those things. And we need a relationship with that. And we find our deepest meaning in that relationship. And if we don't find it, I think, if we don't find it in something that's explicitly religious, then we tend to magnify something of lesser value, say something political, into that to fill the void. So yes, life has proximal meanings without God, without eternity, but at the ultimate level, something's lacking. And it's the desire to fulfill that lack that, and maybe the lack itself, that's part and parcel of the religious instinct. So you can kill God, but you can't. That doesn't rectify the hunger for God. And then that hunger seeks out replacements. That's how it looks to me. So, and then, you know, you might also say, well, does that mean you have to believe in God? And I don't think of the proper answer to that is that you need to agree with a propositional statement. Does God exist? Yes. No, like, is this table there? Yes. It's not that kind of relationship. I mean, it's characterized in the Old Testament as a struggle. So Israel means those who struggle with God. And you have to participate in that struggle. And you can do that, weirdly enough, as a believer or as a non-believer. Maybe sometimes more intensely as a non-believer. The issue might be more paramount then, the issue of virtue and the issue of the ultimate orientation.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, tell the truth.
There's so many rules that are great, but what do you think is probably, if somebody was to read those books and there's one rule that you're like, this rule out of the 24 I've given you over these past few years, you can absolutely not get this one wrong. Which rule would that be?
Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Because you can't tell the truth, right? Because who are you to tell the truth? That's a mighty tall order, man. But you can stop saying things that you know are lies. And that will change your life if you do that. And it's crucial.
Why would it change their life?
Well, how can you adapt to reality when you falsify it? And you think, well, I'm just lying to other people. No, you're not. You can't just lie to other people, because what you say becomes you, especially if you practice it, because we build ourselves out of words. And that can be lies in action too. It's like, don't say things you know to be false. That's a good start, man. And it aligns yourself with the truth. And that, like, how can that be a bad idea? Imagine that what is true reflects reality, which is sort of the definition of true. How can failing to align yourself with reality work? How is that possibly going to work? Well, you say, well, I can, if I lie, I get away with something. It's like, no, you don't. I tell you, I swear this is true. In all of my clinical practice, I have never, ever seen anyone ever get away with anything even once. You think the chickens won't come home to roost. It's like, all that means is you're too stupid to see what your lies caused, or too blind or too self-deceptive. You just don't see it. And so you don't get away with anything, nothing. It's terrifying to actually understand that. It's terrifying. What if you can't get away with anything, ever? Well, that's the judgmental God, fundamentally. That's a very old idea, and it's an old idea for a reason. And of course you can't get away with anything, because imagine that you took a flexible plastic comb, and you bent it backwards, and you say, well, I got away with that. It's like, well, what's going to happen when you let go? It's going to snap back and hit you in the face, and that's life, man. You warp the structure of reality. You think you are someone who can warp the structure of reality with your words and get away with it? Really? No, man, that should terrify you right to the core of your soul. You're not God.
Rule number 6, change your perception.
Your perceptual structures are determined by the goals that you have at hand. I mean, some of that's not completely true, because your perceptual systems also have limitations, right? There's things you can't see or hear even if you need to. So there are limitations built in, but within that set of limitations, you're still trying to tune your perceptions to your motivated goals. And that's also very useful to think about when you're trying to understand artificial intelligence, because for human beings, without goals, there's no perception. Because there's no filtering mechanism that you can use to determine the level of resolution at which you perceive. Anyway, so there's a thing made of smaller things which are made out of smaller things. And it's kind of my iconic representation of the complexity of the world. And then you could think, well, what is this? How can you see this object? And I think if you just look at it, you can detect, it's like a Necker cube, those cubes that that are line drawings that you can see the front of, and then it'll flip to the back. Have you seen those? So this is kind of Necker cube-like, or at least it is for me, in that when I look at it, my perceptions play around with it. Sometimes I focus on the kind of cross-like shape in the middle, and sometimes I can see these other lines, and then sometimes I'll focus on that square, and sometimes I can see the little dots there, or maybe one dot, and my perceptions are going like this, trying to fit a pattern to it. And you can kind of detect that when you're watching it. And so I would say, well, you have the options of perceiving this in its full complexity, or you can simplify it. Essentially, there's lots of ways you can simplify it, but some of them are laid out there. So you take the complex thing, you make a low resolution representation of it. So that's the rough area that all those dots occupy. That's the rough area broken down to its 4 most fundamental quadrants. That might be how you would look at it if this was a map of an orchard and you were trying to walk from south to north. That would be a useful representation. This combines this and this. That's that's the highest level of resolution that you can perceive this object at. That's lower resolution than the object itself. So the first issue is, how should you look at things? Well, that's a problem that intelligence has to solve. So that's one of the problems that intelligence goes after. And then I think what happens is we have the thing in itself, and then we simplify it with a perception, and that's like an iconic representation, and then we nail the iconic representation with a word. And that's how we compress the world's complexity into something that we can manage. We take the complex thing, make it into an icon, and represent the icon with a word. And then when I throw you the word, so to speak, you decompose it into the icon and then decompose it even further into the thing, if you know the icon and you know the thing. And so then we can use shorthand, right? Because you have representational structures and so do I, and I'm just tossing you markers about your representational structures and you can unfold them. That's what you do when you're reading a novel, because the novel comes alive in your imagination in your own idiosyncratic way. And it wouldn't if you didn't understand the references of the novel, right? The novelist has to assume that your basic perceptual structures and your intuitions and your instincts are basically the same as his or hers, because otherwise they have to assume that, because otherwise they would be lost in an infinite regressive explanation. So, and it's problematic often. For example, if you start reading Victorian novels, you may find that it takes a while to get into them because the presuppositions, the expectations are slightly different, and so is the language. You have to update the representations.
Rule number 7, decide to love.
You have to make a decision in your life. And this is a decision, and I would say that it's a voluntary element of faith because it isn't exactly evidence-based. It's more like something you decide before you even look at the evidence. It's more like you decide to stake your life on this. Like, you know, if you decide to get married to someone, you don't really do it on the basis of the evidence that you're going to have a happy life because you don't have that evidence. You do it, you decide that you're going to make a happy life with this person and that it's worth the risk. So you get married as an expression of faith. Okay, and so faith doesn't mean believing things that no one with any sense would believe. Faith sometimes means putting a stake in the sand and saying, here's where I stand in some sense regardless. And you do that when you get married. You do that maybe when you pledge allegiance to a friend. You have a best friend and you want to maintain that friendship as long as you possibly can. It's a decision of faith. Maybe you do that when you decide a career, when you go to university, because you could have done something else, right? But you chose that. So that's where you put your faith. And like I said, that doesn't mean believing what no reasonable person would believe. Okay, so back to God is love. Well, I'm going to talk about being first instead of God. And being is the totality of experience. That we're going to define it that way for the purposes of this discussion. Being is what there is instead of nothing. And you experience that as a conscious creature. Being is what you experience as a conscious creature. It includes all your emotions, all your motivations, all your subjective experience, as well as everything that's objective. Okay, so it seems to me that all things considered, it's a useful move of faith to act as if you love being. And if you love something, then you want the best in it to flourish. And so maybe you decide deep in your soul that it would be better for you to act towards an end that makes everything that's good better. That's the best way to live, to make everything that's good better. And maybe to restrict the development of everything that's malevolent and evil within yourself and in the broader world, insofar as you're able to do that. And so I think that's an expression of love, is that because when you love something, you care for it. And the proper attitude towards being, I think, is care. And so that's one element of God is love. God being analogous in some way to being. Now, we could look at God more classically as the creator of being. If you assume being is good, well, it's not much of a leap to assume the creator of being is good. And maybe you adopt an attitude towards the creator of being, and that's also love. And you open your heart to existence. And maybe that's the most effective means of having existence open its heart to you. So, for example, if you love other people, you want the best for them, you want the best in you to serve the best in them. If you love them and you trust them courageously, so you open yourself up to them, I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that that's how you elicit the best from them, the best that can be elicited. You're going to get hurt sometimes and betrayed, but that's going to happen no matter what approach you take. I think that's the most effective approach. And that is perhaps the most effective approach to existence per se, to approach it with love and courage. And so that's how that looks to me. Is it a feeling like loving a person? Yes, I think it is. I think it is a feeling like loving a person. It's the generalization of that care that you would have for a child, your brother, your sister, a family member. It's the generalization of that to the broader domain of existence, to broader domains of existence. And I think that's a skill in some sense, right? I mean, if you're good at loving and caring for your family, but you can expand that outward so that more people are brought under that umbrella, then, well, assuming you can manage that, it's very difficult. It seems to me that that's laudable. It seems to me that we spontaneously admire and would like to imitate people who are capable of that. And so you see that when you have a job or you encounter a boss who takes you under his or her wing and helps develop you, or you find a teacher who's particularly inspiring, or you work for an entrepreneur who's inspiring and who also opens doors for you. They're acting with love, as far as I'm concerned. They want the best in them to serve the best in you. And that's very, very motivating for everyone. And that's the proper basis of our social relationships, not power, for God's sake. So, can love balance out the crushing responsibility? That's a sophisticated question. I don't know the answer to that. Love is warmer than responsibility. Love is part of empathy and agreeableness. It's a different dimension than responsibility, which is more part of conscientiousness and sort of a cold virtue. I don't know if it balances out the crushing responsibility, but I think it's the emotional analog to the crushing responsibility, right? So maybe there's love and duty, and they run parallel in if you're an ethical person. That's not all there is to ethics, but love and duty, they're important, and maybe they're better together than they would be as independent entities.
Rule number 8, be grateful.
So then you can imagine, I have this cottage in Northern Ontario, and we're fortunate. It's dark there, and so you can go down to the dock at night, and in the clear sky, you can see the vast array of the infinite heavens arrayed above you, and it's something that people who live in cities really don't get to experience anymore. They don't experience the sunset, which we also go out on our boat and watch pretty much every day. And that puts you in touch with what inspires awe. And that's not a propositional experience, that's a pre-propositional experience, and it's a deep biological experience. It's embedded in the prey response to a predator in part, because if you feel awe, sometimes you can feel that with music. A lot of people who are high in openness to experience will feel that quite frequently under the effect of aesthetic experiences, interestingly enough. Their hair stands on end. That's piloerection. That's what a cat does when it's frightened by a dog. Like the little boy at the beginning of the story. The cat puffs up to look big, to be like meta cat, so that it can contend with, It can contend with dogs, or at least it can look like it might. And so when it sees a dog, the sight of the dog calls the best forth out of the cat. Well, that's what happens when you look at the night sky. You know, it calls to you, right? Dr. Dawkins sent me a paper last week in preparation for a discussion that we're going to have tomorrow. And it was a very interesting paper, and I think I read it about 25 years ago, and he said, any functioning animal has to be a microcosm, a model of the environment within which it finds itself. Well, that's true of us. And so when you look at the night sky and that sense of awe grips you and calls something out of you, right? To respond to your encounter with the infinite, even your encounter with mortality, your encounter with finitude and limitation, all of that in relationship to the infinite. That sense of awe is also the calling forth of something out of you that can respond to the challenge of that infinite. Well, that's the microcosm within. You know? It's a reflection of the structure of the cosmos itself. That's the divine ideal. And we either imitate that, or we fail to imitate that, or we pursue the opposite path. Those are the options, you know. And it's given our technological power and our capacity for wholesale atrocity, it's time we woke up and realized it.
Rule number 9, overcome self-deception.
What's the most effective way of overcoming self-deception? The problem of self-deception is extremely thorny, and it's tangled up with the issue of ignorance as well, right? How do you know when you just don't know something? And how do you know when you're being willfully blind? And how do you know when you're outright lying? All of those things are, especially to yourself, all of those things are very complicated. So to some degree, the answer is, well, you have to develop a philosophy of life that's detailed, that contains within it an assessment of your thoughts about the relationship between truth and deceit. So, for example, do you believe that it's okay to lie? Is it okay to deceive other people to get what you want? Are there occasions when it's okay to deceive other people if that helps them get what they want? So that would be an instance, for example, of what people perhaps call white lies, right? Lies that are designed to be of benefit. Are they appropriate? Do you feel that it's okay to deceive yourself or other people in the pursuit of things that you believe are valuable? And none of those are trivial questions, and they can't be answered with trivial answers. So to some degree, you need a moral philosophy that privileges the truth above all else if you wish to cease engaging in self-deception. And then you might ask, well, how would you develop such a philosophy? And some of that might be, well, reading about moral philosophy, reading literature, because it often deals with questions of good and evil and deception, thinking about it, writing about it, reading about it. Well, I said that. And also contemplating how central an issue this is for your life. How important is this? And why is it important if it's important? Have you lied and got into trouble? Do you believe that you can lie and get away with it? If you don't believe that you can get away with it, do you still engage in it? If so, why? All right, so let's leave the complexity behind though, but that's a necessary part of the answer. How do you stop deceiving yourself, assuming that you want to stop doing so? Well, I don't believe that you can tell unerringly when you're telling the truth. I think that some of the time when you lie outright, you know. And so what I would recommend and have recommended in my writings, in my books, especially in 12 Rules for Life, the first of my last 2 books, said tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And I added that codicil to the phrase tell the truth because it became evident to me when I was writing that, you know, I don't know the truth, certainly not in its fullness. And so I can't say to someone, tell the truth, but I can say, if you believe that the truth is valuable, and if you believe that living your life according to the dictates of the truth is for the best for you and everyone else, let's say, then you could at least stop lying. And then I would say that as you pay attention to what you say, so that you're attending to your deceptive statements and trying to stop making them. Some of them maybe you know outright they're not true. Some of them make you feel uneasy and weak. That would be a less evident criteria of falsehood, but still a reasonable one. You stop doing that, and then your eye for such things, or your ear for such things, or your embodied capacity to evaluate such things develops, just as everything develops with practice. And your intent, which is to maintain truth in your speech, becomes sharper and more focused across time. And perhaps you get, as you eliminate the obvious untruths, you get better and better at detecting the more subtle untruths, and better and better at avoiding being entangled with those as well. So the first issue, I guess, is the decision that it's best to live in truth. And then you have to decide how far you're willing to take that, if that becomes an absolute, for example, or if it's an important guideline, but perhaps to be superseded by other things. You have to sort that out for yourself. Once having established that, then I believe that you decide and practice not lying. And then possibly, if you're fortunate, if the world smiles on you, you'll engage in less self-deception. I guess the last thing I would add to that is that there's another form of self-deception that I wrote about in the second of my last two books, so the last one, Beyond Order. There's a chapter in there called Don't Hide Things in the Fog. And that really deals with self-deception too. So you might say, well, there's one form of self-deception that occurs when you say something that you know not to be true and pretend even to yourself that it's true, or even act as if it's true, or base other statements or actions on it as if it's true. But there's a more subtle form of self-deception, which I think is more pervasive, which is the unwillingness to look at, or the willingness to turn away from evidence that you know would undermine something that you want to believe, or make things inconvenient for you. I think like a cliched example is maybe someone runs a company and they have a chief financial officer, and they know that person's not exactly straight, but it's convenient not to look at the books. So maybe when you're around that person, they feel guilty and uncomfortable, and that's a sign that something's wrong in the state of Denmark, so to speak. But then the self-deceptive act is not to look where you know you should look, and that's the sort of thing that people refer to when they talk about the elephant under the carpet, or the skeleton in the closet. And sometimes, to mix metaphors terribly, it's better to let sleeping dogs lie. But often, if you have the sense that there's something more to the story, it's painful and difficult to delve into it. But to not do so, which is the easy route, is a form of self-deception, very common self-deception. And I don't think my experience as a clinician, and my personal experience as well, is that when you have a sense that something's up and you fail to act, you will inevitably pay a much higher price for it at some point deferred into the future. So you have to think that through yourself and ask yourself if you believe that's true. And if it is true, unless you want more trouble in the future, then perhaps you investigate it when your moral unease, let's say, alerts you to the fact that there's something to investigate.
And rule number 10, the last one, of course, some very special bonus clips, is help others.
wherever I go in the world, people come up to me and they're usually, I wouldn't say they're happy to see me. They're often in tears, you know, and they often have a pretty rough story to relate. You know, they were suicidal, or nihilistic, or homicidal, or trapped, desperate, you know, and they tell me that real fast. And then they say, I've overcome that to a large degree, and thank you for that. And you think, well, that's pretty something to have that happen over and over. In some ways, you might think, well, how could anything better possibly happen to you than to have people come up to you all over the world, strangers, and open themselves up like that, like their old friends, so quickly. But at the same time, so I wouldn't change that. But it's not nothing.